stick around. It's been a while since we've gotten a good history lesson here on North Dakota Today, so we called our favorite historian. He'll be joining us after the break.
Well, here we love award season, and the 97th Academy Awards ceremony is taking place this weekend. So we brought in Hollywood native celebrity historian Raffi Andonian to take a look at the glamorous Hollywood past. Good morning, Raffi.
Hey, good morning. And you know, actually my pickup line when I met my wife was, "I'm from Hollywood." So it's very special to me.
Okay, I love it already. And
Oscar-worthy pickup line, by the way.
Oh, it is. It just keeps rolling. Now, you also sent in some really cool photos of old Hollywood, new Hollywood. So let's dive in. How did Hollywood begin?
Hollywood began, believe it or not, kind of like a real estate project with a ranching venture. A guy from the Midwest went out to the area, which was a kind of a dusty town, and tried his hand at ranching. Didn't work out really well. So he starts developing what later became Hollywood Boulevard. And the famous Hollywood Hotel ends up on the very location of what is today the Dolby Theater, where, of course, they're holding the Oscars. So it's kind of cool that it's like actually on the original location, which to me makes it pretty incredible to think about, right? And the Hollywood development that came over after that. Now, part of the reason that they're going west, they started to attract film industry out west, was because they were trying to get away from the East Coast, away from a guy named Thomas Edison, if you ever heard of him.
Oh.
Because Edison, with all his technology and his hands in all kinds of different pots, was very strict on patents, and they're trying to get away from that, as well as the good weather and the very terrain of California. So believe it or not, that's kind of how the film industry starts taking off in Hollywood. And in by the time you get to the 1920s, the Roaring '20s, and into the 1930s, the Depression, that's when you really get the golden age of Hollywood, when people were out of jobs and were looking for ways to pick themselves up. They really went to a lot of movie theaters in the 1930s, and some of the all-time classics come out of the 30s. You think about Jezebel, Stagecoach, The Wizard of Oz, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and of course, Gone with the Wind, like the ultimate blockbuster of all time that no movie has even reached the same level of success. So that's how you have the Hollywood development in this period. And of course, you know, you're seeing some images there with the Hollywood land, the Hollywood sign. And the Hollywood land is in this process, sold as a real estate project in the 1920s to show that this is an attractive place to come. And that Hollywood land there, you're seeing right there up there. And of course, today the sign just says Hollywood. And it was just designed to be a sort of a temporary sign to attract real estate purchases, but of course ended up being iconic over time, minus the land part, of course. There's a modern look at it.
There we go.
Hollywood sign right there.
I love it. Okay, so you have your mini Oscar there with you. When did the first Oscars actually happen?
Right in this period. So 1929 is the first time you have it. There it is, the little guy right here, my own award, of course. But the Oscars in 1929, believe it or not, did not have a red carpet. That didn't happen until 30 years later. Did not have even a broadcast. Radio broadcast happened of the Oscars a year or two later. TV broadcast wouldn't happen for more than 20 years later. And it was a very different thing. In fact, the winners were known in advance. They were published in the Los Angeles Times 3 months in advance. So the winners were even known. It's a celebratory dinner. So very different than what we might imagine today. But what's really interesting about the development of the Oscars is, think about it. This is a startup industry in the 1920s that's seeing a lot of success. So part of what they're trying to do, of course, is with the Academy Awards, you have of course, the Academy for the Motion Picture that is going to try to pursue excellence, to display excellence in the industry, to sort of promote it, if you will. So that's why it gets started by recognizing that peer review. Now, the original awards and were varying in size, but shortly afterwards became standardized. So then, even though this little guy is pretty small, in real life, it's 13 and a half inches tall, 8.5 pounds, solid bronze, gold-plated.
Wow.
I mean, it's a pretty hefty award when you think about it. And there was symbolism that started even originally. This is kind of a golden knight when you look at him. And the knight is supposed to protect the industry on the 5 reels of film that it's standing on. It's standing on a reel of film, but it has 5 spokes on it. And the spokes represent all the components of a film. So you have actors, you have directors, producers, technicians, and writers. So really, there's a lot of symbolism behind that award when you think about it.
That is fascinating. I never knew that. I always just thought it was, ooh, fun, glitzy gold statue, but there's history, there's elements. That's fascinating.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, in North Dakota, real quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we have winners?
Yeah, anybody from North Dakota, right? And Richard Edlund is a North Dakota native, born in Fargo, North Dakota, won 8 Academy Awards. Count them,
Wow.
8 Academy Awards, which I think is pretty cool. And mostly for the Star Wars series that is involved in, of course, a lot of visual effects, scientific awards, and all kinds of things, but also an Indiana Jones movie. But look, I know that Richard Edlund was from Fargo, North Dakota. That's cool, but how can I talk about the Oscars without the movie Fargo? Because the movie Fargo in the 90s also won some Oscars, both with the Coen brothers for their writing and screenplay, and of course, you have Frances McDormand, who was who won Best Actress. So, kind of cool connections to North Dakota through the Oscars that I think are worthwhile. Now, look, when you think about the bright lights of Hollywood, you see right here, think of Hollywoodland, the sign, which was originally a series of bulbs and lights, and the attention that it drew, which today then draws attention to the awards, the glitzy glam that you're talking about, the gold, the bright lights, completely different than when it originally started, but I think fulfills the dream that those original Hollywood folks had in mind.
That's a good way to put it. And we're going to have to get you one of those mini wood chippers, too. I know they sell them at the visitor center. We have the real one here in Fargo, of course.
There I am at the grave of Groucho Marx, who sometimes hosted a show called Hollywood Palace. So that's me putting on the disguise looking just like him. And look, as I mentioned, I grew up in Hollywood. That's of course, here I am, Hollywood history, if you will, TV history. And so I'll leave you all with this, one of my favorite songs with Hollywood that reminds me of home.
I can't hear that, Raffi, but I bet you're jamming out, and it looks like you're having a fantastic time there. Go Bruins with your UCLA hat. Thank you so much for coming on today's show. And I'll let you keep jamming, and maybe I'll join you after the break. But you guys at home, don't go anywhere. Coming up on today's show, we'll have more North Dakota Today.